my desert island all-time top 5 most memorable split-ups in chronological order. Allison Ashworth, Penny Hardwick, Jackie Allen, Kat Monroe, Sarah Kendrew. These are the ones that really hurt. Can you see your name in that list, Laura? Hi, welcome to the Say Report. I'm Devon Decker, and joining me today, my usual host companion, Sejohn Sarowick.
Hey, everybody. Does that make me the Jack Black of this group? I think it does.
And if Sejohn's claiming that, Will, I'm sorry, but it makes sense. Ladies and gentlemen, Will Fournier's here this week on the Say Report.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for making me Dick.
Yeah, you get to be the other guy.
Thanks for that. This Moby-looking motherfucker. I'm that guy.
He's the only one who winds up... Well, no, I guess John Cusack winds up with someone. Anywho, before we go any further without talking about this, because I just want to get it over with, welcome to our episode called Why Fidelity? And you may be asking yourself, why Fidelity? Why Fidelity, Will?
Why? Well, this all stems to probably about 8 days ago, maybe, when I saw a little trailer for the new Hulu original High Fidelity TV series, 20 years on from the film we all know, and then even further on from the book we should all hopefully know. And I sent it to Devon saying, look what they're doing. I wonder why they're doing this. and you kind of took it and you ran with it from there, didn't you?
I decided that I would ingrain myself into the world of High Fidelity, beginning with the novel from 1995, going to the John Cusack movie from 2000, and then watching the 2020 show starring Zoe Kravitz. I always want to say Saldana, to see if I could figure out why. Why High Fidelity again?
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm right with you two. I don't know why either. I'm not getting in on the bit. But yeah, man, like I feel we were all right to question it as well. But anyway, we'll get to that.
I've heard no one calling for, like, this is what needs to be redone.
Yeah.
There wasn't a point where anyone went, I agree. The movie wasn't enough. We need more, slightly more in-depth, discussion of this world, but let's change it completely first.
Yeah, we even have kind of evidence to the contrary in the fact that they do the musical years after the movie and it goes nowhere.
The musical, the musical, which I found out while I was digging through this, premieres in November of 2016. It has 13 performances before it closes on Broadway.
Which is unheard of. I mean, like, you could do 13 performances in less than a day. like it's fucking Broadway. Like,
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're looking at minimum 8 shows a week, they did not do well.
Yeah.
And I think it did 19 preview performances.
Hey, man.
But like those don't count. Previews don't count.
To ask Spider-Man, but the point sticks. Yeah.
But I feel if you're doing more previews than actual run, that's not a good place to be.
I feel like that's unprecedented unless Bialystok and Bloom are producing.
Yeah, that would, unless that's the whole point. Maybe they did this on purpose. No.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, like, when you came to me with this idea about how you wanted to do this, I, like, tried to avoid this episode like the plague. I was like, do I have to be there for this one? Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's a movie that, it's a story, book, movie, musical, TV show that at the end of the day does not offend me enough for me to sit around and like talk about why nobody should watch it. If you want to go watch High Fidelity, I encourage you to. Like, go check it out. Like I feel like High Fidelity still kind of holds a place for me where, like, yeah, everybody should see it once. But that being said, I'm also no fan of it. Like, it's not something that is hugely important to me. It's not something that's hugely formative for me. Our usual shtick on this show of like talking about how meaningful these things were and how much they like created these moments in our lives for us. I got nothing for High Fidelity. I really don't.
Yeah, High Fidelity for me was this movie that I saw because everybody at work was watching it when I worked at Blockbuster.
Sure.
And then I didn't really enjoy it. It like existed and it's unsatisfying, the movie, because it doesn't have a real ending, and it kind of started my fight with media that doesn't end. I hate things that don't end, especially when they're like supposed to. A movie is supposed to have an ending. Even these, like, we live in this time where Marvel movies always set up for the next thing, but you get a satisfying ending, and then you get to see the trailer for the next thing.
Right, it's the difference between an ending and catharsis, right? Like, you can have a movie with no ending as long as there's catharsis, and that's what you're talking about with like the Marvel movies, right? Or like a good horror movie. That's how every good horror movie should end. You should not feel satisfied that the story is over, but you should at least feel that you got a good story while you were there, right? And you're right, this movie does not provide you that, and I feel like that's somewhat purposeful. Like, I do want to give credit where credit's due. I do think that ending is I think you're meant to be left feeling squishy for some reasons. I don't know if necessarily if it works on all levels.
Right. But then
I just feel, I was going to say, I feel like an issue with it is that everything kind of comes full circle and nothing actually happens. Really. Nothing. I mean, it's one of those ones where it's a story about life and nothing really changes because a lot of the times life doesn't change. You do end up back where you started, thinking you've been on this wonderful journey of self-exploration, but actually, no, you're back to where you were. I mean, but then I think the issue is the journey along the way for these guys. It isn't enough of it doesn't give you enough of a visceral reaction to be like, oh, cool, this guy's trying something and he's doing something, he's getting out there. Yeah. All he does is just rehash old ideas he had and be a bit of a bitch about it. And then you end up with it's like, oh, cool, you're back.
But, you know, like, this character, it works in other mediums because, like, he reminds me so much of what's his nuts from Black Books there, the main dude, right? Where, like, he is this, and he is this, like, you know, black shirt wearing nihilist that, like, hates everybody and, like, and he's the reason, he's the antagonist of his own story in a lot of ways. Right, like everything about that character, you can see that here. But what happens there is like he gets his comeuppance. Like there is like a catharsis in watching his character constantly get shit upon by everybody. like that is enjoyable to me. You know, say what you will about me, but like that I will go and watch. So it's not that this kind of character and this kind of story can't work. It's just that in this case, like you're supposed to. It doesn't work with the romantic comedy facade that seems to be applied to this story, you know?
I don't disagree. And the reason why I bought the book was because I hoped, like against hope, that the book would offer me that catharsis that the
British
movie
version
like didn't offer.
Yeah.
And it. I mean, you said it yourself, Devon. You described Nick Hornby as England's favourite author son.
Yeah.
And I think it is that, and his books are, and always will be, this kind of beautiful love letter to either the city of London or the music or the time. And the characters have never felt fully in the story. He's much more about what happens around them. Mm. I mean, same for About a Boy. The character is not, there's no depth to this person. He has a journey, he grows, he changes a bit, but it's much more about what he's doing and where he is and the walk they go on in the city and the park and everything around them.
Yeah.
And I think Nick Hornby is a very good writer and he will focus hugely on these details around, which help build this beautiful picture for you, but sometimes to the detriment of his characters because they don't always get the same kind of love.
Well, I think that he takes a book out of Capote's book it takes a page out of Capote's book where he's writing for the movie. Like it feels like every one of his books is being written for that charming character like a John Cusack or a Hugh Grant to come in and play those roles, those kind of like shells of characters, and then they get to add their Hugh Grantness to it, their Cusackness to it, and that's what becomes charming about those characters in those movies. Not what Nick Hornby wrote about them, but what those actors are bringing to the role, right? Like it's prime for that kind of thing.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, can you go ahead, Will?
I was going to say, I think there are some times when you approach a character and you've got too much information and you don't know what to do with it. But then this time you say you've got that a little bit more freedom as an actor to come in and go, right, this is what I think this character wants to do, and I'm going to add these bits in myself, and you can do, which is what I think makes them so good, maybe to be film adaptations of books.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and actually, to go to your point about him taking a page out of Capote's book, I feel like this book doesn't get published if Clerks doesn't take the world by storm a year earlier in 1994.
Yeah.
I feel like that says to the world, people are willing to watch these slackers at these dead-end jobs just talk about their lives. And Nick Hornby sees that, says, I can do that, writes High Fidelity, and just waits for it to get optioned to be a book. I mean, to be a movie. Let's option this book to be a book.
Yeah, let's rebook it.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we should talk about the fact that this movie does mean something to people, right? Like the three of us could sit here and talk about how it means nothing to us, but like, no joke, before you even got on, Will, I was just telling Devon the story that we had a conversation about doing this episode on Saturday. Saturday night, I find myself at a party where completely organically, like, somebody says, oh, remember High Fidelity? I loved that book. It meant so much to me. And then somebody else next to them going, oh, but the movie is so good too. And it became like this conversation around me that I was just like, it was surreal. I was like, are we really doing this? Like 2 hours after I had a production meeting essentially about like talking about this thing. And it was, so it does mean something to people, like Dev, you even have mentioned like friends of ours that clearly like took this movie in, right? Like,
yes. I mean, the person that even let me know that it was based on a book, he has based his entire life on the teachings of Rob Gordon, Robert Fleming, Robin Brooks. I mean, that's the other thing, I guess, we're talking about like a character that can be infinitely adapted, is that in a lot of ways it already has been, in the fact that the names change, even though the setting also changes, but I guess the bones remain the same.
Yeah. The spine, the skeleton.
Well, yeah, they kept. Yeah, there's still enough of the original story in terms of like, let's not mix it up with being a record store. It's still what it is. You can modernize it however you want and mix around with it how you want. There's still bits of it where you're like, no, he needs these. The music is such a key element to both the book, the film, and now the series, that you can't change these elements. Whether you can change the character from male or female to whatever you want, that bit's kind of relatively irrelevant, as long as the situation remains.
Yeah. But yeah, and then also I know people that I met in college who like swear by, it's what you like, not who you are, that attracts you to other people. Which I just think, I have always thought that's such a negative way to view the world. Yeah. Because it's almost like an excuse to not have to develop yourself as a person. Mm-hmm. I can just develop interests.
Yes, it's the inherent problem with nihilism, man. When these dudes have this feeling that everything means nothing, so why do anything, right? And it's interesting because you start to see an evolution later on where this character kind of gets turned into a lot of our bigger heroes, right? And like the first thing I think of when is Angel, who the whole point of his character arc throughout that series is to embrace nihilism as a superpower, to up to the point where, I mean, spoiler alerts for the finale of Angel, but his whole speech in the very last episode of that is that the fight is never over. It's always going to go on. So all that matters is what you do moment to moment, right? And that is like, and that is the next step. In order to get the character to be interesting, in order to make the character evolve and to grow and to change, they need to come to that realization, or at least something like that realization, right? And you never see that at least in High Fidelity. He never gets to a point where he realizes like everything means nothing, so nothing means everything.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
I mean, right? Like, well, right? Like it's kind of what you want as a person, right? And now I have to ask the question: does that matter what you want? Because at the end of the day, like, I feel like I feel like this story kind of sets itself up to succeed by saying that like he's not going to learn anything by the end of this, and then he doesn't. Like, essentially is what this book does.
Yeah, I don't think it ever hides the fact that it's not going to be a literary masterpiece that's going to take you on this amazing thing and you're going to learn along with the character,
or that he's going to be a hero in any way, right? Like you're not supposed to look at Rob Gordon as this guy that is going to get better. You're supposed to look at him and just be like, here's what not to be, right? And I think it's one of those things that, Dev, that you and I talked about so much with Clerks and Kevin Smith all those months ago, where like people walk away from that world with kind of the wrong impression, right?
Yeah. Hard. Yeah, yes, very much so. I really thought this would be more kinetic, but this is such a downer in so many ways to me. And I guess the best part about it, and why I'm glad that you two are the guys that I have here with me, is that it doesn't feel like you were swayed by it either. Like, to see so many people who are like, I'm going to take lessons and internalize them, and they're going to form me as a human being from this narrative, I guess it kind of scared me, especially because I'm not an idiot. I definitely see parts of myself in this character. I really do love music. And, you know, I think about that line, you know, you never put two songs by the same artist together on a mixtape. And I've internalized that so much. And like the question of what came first, the music or the misery, I often wonder if, like, I always felt that way. And then this just sort of, like, validated that feeling.
Verbalized it for you, man. It
Yeah.
put words to something that you kind of always knew.
Oh, 100%. Because I've recently, I've realized recently, whether it be, you know, whether I was single for a while and then got into a relationship, and I realized, wow, the music I listen to is depressingly against relationships.
Right.
And now it's become this new change where I'm like, oh, but I mean, not to say that I'm exponentially more happy now, that just because I have somebody in my life, therefore I'm happier. But there are songs I listen to and I'm like, oh, this song made way more sense when there wasn't somebody else. Or whatever, usually country, I'll be honest. But a lot of the time, songs do come up and you go, oh, and not that now I'm listening to beautiful love songs going, well, of course, this love song makes so much more sense to me. I still think I'm not going to listen to this song again. But there are times when you do go, oh, that level of misery was definitely accentuated by being able to sit and listen to a song that agreed with me in my misery.
Well, yeah, and so, like, apply that to the movie, man. Like, it was so much easier for me to watch this movie 15 years ago because, like, I didn't know how bad it could get, right? And now that I've experienced some, like, really fucked up stuff with breakups, I think my problem is I see too much of myself in this movie, in this book, in this story.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about it. And that's what brings us back to the actual thesis of this. Why Fidelity? Why do it again? Why in 2020 is this the story that we think people are craving? Because what about it are we looking for?
Is it meant to be a comment on how we've not come any further than we should have done in the last 25 years?
Yeah.
Do we think actually, although we make all these wonderful strides in the media or whatever it might be, and there has been some amazing growth in a lot of places, actually we're all still that base creature sitting there going, oh, but why me? Why did it happen? What happened with this? Why did they break up with me?
Yeah.
I'll go on a big life-searching thing to prove why everything's okay.
I don't think this story works in 2016. It's funny that you mentioned the musical coming out that year, but I think that 2006. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. But 2016. I don't think that a show like this could have started 4 years ago when we were still riding the high of Obama in this country and like things were not perfect. Like I will never talk about the past as if we need to go back to it. But like that idea that I was not in a place where I would have cared at all to watch High Fidelity. And now, I won't lie, there are days where, like, yeah, I kind of want to feel a little down, and I kind of want to get a little fucking superior about my pop culture knowledge today because it's going to make me feel good. Like I can connect to that a little bit better today than I could have probably 4 years ago. So, like, I do think that in terms of, are we feeling that way again? I think we're seeing pieces of it. I don't think we're nearly as, like, I don't think we're nearly as like my whole world is black as we were 20 years ago.
I mean, that's a good point, right? This is so it's written by a British author in 1994 and 95. So, I mean, we're how many years removed? Like Clinton is in office, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but he is. Well, do my math for me, Will. How long since Thatcher had been around? 6 years, 7 years? Is that too long?
Yeah, going on for that. It's about that. Yeah, she would still be there's definitely still a hangover from the Thatcher years.
Well, especially for a 35-year-old dude, right? Like his 20s were spent dealing with Thatcher, and so like that is where this dude is coming, where Hornby is coming from. You know, you see the same thing in Neil Gaiman, right? Like his writing on another trenchcoat nihilist, like Constantine, like within that 80s to like 93, 94 period is very, very much in this like, you know, fuck the world means nothing attitude, right?
Yeah, it was very much a time of where there was a little bit of hope because people thought maybe things would change now, but also so much had happened and so much had gone to a dark place with the closures of most of the industry across the UK.
Yeah.
That point hit and everyone was kind of, it wasn't that point where it was like, well, what's the point of all this stuff because it'll just get closed or just get cancelled or...
Right.
No one can reskill themselves at the age of 40 to go out and do something new.
Yeah. So in a weird way, this dude is like, Rob Gordon is longing for this period in which rebellion was really kind of the purest way to make music, to make art, to express yourself. Because like, at least when Thatcher was in office, I knew where I stood, is essentially the attitude, right? Like,
yeah, I think there was a point where you're gonna get told this is what the status quo is, so deal with it.
And then you know how to rebel against it, right? Fuck that.
Yeah, and then you're allowed to come out and be like, no, I disagree, and I'm going to do what I want. And then people everything got not better, but, you know, it improved to some extent for certain people. And then it was like, oh, this is way, way nicer than it was, so maybe we'll just be happy with what we have. Mm-hmm. And everything's cool again, right?
Right.
This seems like the best answer to the question. And if you look at these things as deep as I have, politics never fucking comes up in any of these things.
Yeah.
And...
No, yeah, they're not mentioned.
Right. But it's interesting because, you know, it's like a distraction almost. Like the pop culture that he's immersed himself in is a distraction from that. But he wouldn't be feeling the way that he is or interacting the way that he is with the world if not for what the world was sending back to him. And I would have never considered that, but yeah, the political climate of 2020 definitely opens the door up for somebody like, I'm just going to focus on my shit because everything else is already garbage.
Well, and if you think about the film version, it's 2000 and he's 35, right? Mm-hmm. So if you go backwards for him, he would have been entering his 20s with like Reagan and Bush Sr. And then like suddenly the Clintons for 8 years, right? Like, so you almost get that same exact like motif.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, and so it's really interesting that you mentioned that there's nothing really political if you dig that deep, but I think that the TV show kind of throws that a little bit because it becomes so political, the choices that they make in the changes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not only do they make her a woman, she is a young mixed race woman, right? Like Zoe Kravitz, right? Like there's some choices there, and the idea that one of her partners is still female is a really good move, right? Like definitely politics involved in the way that they make this TV show.
And the fact that one of them is a man who became a homosexual and is still a part of her life. I mean, like that change, that was something I was sort of dreading because it's a change that's made in the musical. There's a lot of this that feels informed by the musical, and I feel like the musical's never going to get its day. And why would it? It had 13 actual performances.
It got a day, like a day.
Right. But it's one of those situations where the setting, putting it in Brooklyn, like they did for the new series, that, first of all, like, an inherent belief of mine from the book and the first film, they're not going to remake the film after the TV show, or maybe they will. Like, prove me wrong in, like, 2035. But... is the fact that he's located in he's a record store in a place where no one's really going to buy records. Like, am I wrong? Yeah. I don't know North London well enough, but, like, it paints enough of a picture that nobody's going to North London to buy records.
No, it's definitely not a destination area where you think that'll be the one to head to. There'll be your captive audience who do know you've got the weird stuff and travel, and that's what you've got to keep yourself alive on.
Right.
but it's not like it's a hotbed for the music scene.
Right. It's another act of rebellion for him, right? Like to take this stance and say, fuck you, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make it work because fuck you, that's why, is very much the attitude, I think, behind that choice. And you don't really get that same feeling, right, when you move things to Chicago or Brooklyn. Like,
right. I mean, specifically, the part of Chicago that it is does not seem like the place where a record store would thrive.
no.
I mean, it's not the part of Chicago that Will and I visited. Let's put it that way.
No.
I think it feels more like the idea behind that, and this is a complete change from the book, but I think the idea behind that is it almost feels like it's an oversaturated market, and so like he's just setting himself up to fail in a different way, you know? Like he's like, who is going to come to him for records with a different like kink behind it than in the book. But man, I don't know Brooklyn. I don't know how to explain Brooklyn. I mean,
yeah, because Brooklyn, I feel like you set up a record store and it's just a record store. That's not true. They also sell cassettes. But it's cassettes and records. There's no CDs there. Yeah. And like that flourishes in Brooklyn. The only reason that
that's huge.
And the only reason why it doesn't is because of their attitudes. Because the people come in and they like flat out refuse to sell them shit because
or
they're like hipsters.
Out of the store. Yeah.
She does that one. In the first episode, she reads through their one Yelp review. You know, good place, had things we wanted, kind of quirky stuff. I mean, 2.5 stars.
Yeah.
Like that's all it needs to be. Is like, yeah, they have everything you want. They will definitely be able to get you hold of that record that you're specifically searching for somebody. But also, nah, you're not going to get it. I mean, Jack Black does it in the movie with the guy who comes in every day wanting to buy the one thing, and he's like, no, I don't feel like selling it to you today. And sends him on his way, and he goes, that's exactly it. It's that, you know, you're kind of setting yourself up to fail by being the guy who's like, no, we're too cool for you guys. Which I guess works in Brooklyn, so maybe it's fine. But it doesn't work in Chicago, and it probably didn't work in North London.
Right. And I guess that's it. So that's the way that I can justify Brooklyn. Especially, I don't know, how far into the show did either of you get?
Oh, first episode, and then I bounced. I'm not even going to hide that.
I fell asleep during the second one, but that's my own fault. I got up really early and did stuff, and then was tired.
That's fine.
So I was enjoying it, but I made the mistake of lying down to watch it, and then was like, oh, hang on.
Yeah.
This is episode 3 now. I had to turn that off.
I unabashedly will tell you, I had the time to watch more of it and chose not to.
That's completely fine. That's completely fine. It is revealed later on that there is like a rival record store.
Okay, sorry.
And it right
straight out of a John Cusack 80s movie.
Yeah,
I love it.
And it's very much like that guy's so cool to them, and he invites them over to like a party that he's throwing at that record store. So like he sees them as like we share this passion, which is really interesting when you consider that one of the central like themes of this is it's not who you are, it's what you like. And like because we both like records, we can be friends even though we're competing against each other. But they fucking hate that guy because he'll sell to the hipsters and he'll act that way. And I'm just like, okay, so that's what seals it for me, because I'm thinking record store in Brooklyn, you're not going to have the issues with rent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, is the idea that they still go to his party? No, they hate him so much, but yet they still show up at his party.
Only Simon goes, or Dick.
Oh,
yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, they do. So is the other store called Empire Records?
No, I wish. It's
Mondo Records.
High stuff or take. It's like take tough or high grade. It's like one of those things where it's like, oh God, like it totally. The title of that represents that we're better than you. Like you can just see that that's how they see the name of the shop.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So that's an interesting thing. Other things, other changes, because the second you change Rob from Rob to Robin, and it is Robin Brooks, that is her name. That's not revealed to like the third or second episode. It's the third episode.
Well, I was thinking that even if you go to IMDb, she doesn't have a character name.
Yeah.
Everyone else is given one. Hers just is left blank, and it just says Zoe Kravitz. 10 episodes.
Well, it also says that Jake Lacey is in 10 episodes, and he's in 3. maybe
Not
4.
enough flashbacks. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I've also noticed this thing with IMDb where you have to click on the full cast list to see character names now.
Getting those page clicks.
Yeah,
Look,
exactly.
I am. Don't worry. I'm on that full page list. There is no.
And it still doesn't have a name. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe
Oh,
they
but-
wanted to keep it secret that she was Rob, but like she says it in the trailer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And her opening monologue, opening section, very much suggests, by the way, this is Rob.
I will give you a little bit of credit for that thought, though, Dev. I mean, in this day and age, taking a character like Rob Gordon and saying we're going to make this character female, I can see how if that had come out 3 or 4 months ago, before the show dropped, and people didn't have a chance to watch it for themselves, that could turn into a fucking shit show on. I mean, like, look at the reaction to Birds of Prey right now, and like and the scrambling.
Ghostbusters, The
Yeah.
Hustle. I
I mean, even Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so hiding the fact that she was going to be Rob up until the moment where they really couldn't anymore is actually I can see that for sure.
Yeah, and that's I mean, so there's like step 1 on that. Step 2, so you guys met her brother. If you saw the first episode, you met her brother Cam. And
Yeah.
the second I saw Cam, I said, "So you're Joan Cusack." There's no way that you're
Yeah,
not
Joan
Joan Cusack's character, Liz. And I said that out loud, and I was watching it with Dale, and she's like, "That? How do you know? How do you know that's it?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, because I bet somebody who watched the movie thought that Joan Cusack was just playing his sister." I could totally see.
It is written into every John Cusack contract. I assume that there must be a part for John Cusack. It's just written into contracts from what I've seen.
They've been in
It's what he
9
does.
movies together at least.
It's a package deal.
Yeah. No.
Like, oh, by the way, do you have any space for my sister? She's cool.
All bits aside, he straight up does. Him and his writing partners wrote this movie, wrote Gross Point Blank. Anytime they show up together, yes.
Right.
And
So
she met Jack Black, and they were like, "Cool, now you could do something together." And, Cooler Rock was born.
and if you
yeah.
want to be the teacher's pet. But yeah, so I think that, but then the grosser thing about that to me is, in order for a female Rob to have that friend who is just a friend and confidant the way that Joan Cusack is to him in the film, is if they're related.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it and that bummed me out in this way where I'm just like, why? Like especially since a theme of it is that her and Simon are still friends even though they dated, but again, there's that other way that a woman can be friends with a man without the sense that sexuality will happen, and that's that he's a homosexual. So like really nasty tropes about male and female friendship definitely come slammed in that very first episode.
Yeah. I'm not. I can't disagree with you. So I'm not saying that because I disagree with you. By the way.
No, I didn't. Do you disagree with me?
No. Okay. I said yeah, and it was a disappointed yeah, but I realized, oh, that sounds like I'm like disappointed that the show's not better, but I'm not surprised is really what it is.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing, which brings me to my last bit, which is we've talked about how he's presented in the book and how he's presented in the movie, and I think that we can all agree he's a bit of a bastard in
Yes.
both of those.
I mean, Joan Cusack clearly calls him an asshole really loudly.
Yes.
Yep.
But you get that from minute 1. Like, it's not ever like a question that like maybe this is a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately I felt sympathy for Zoe Kravitz's character.
Yeah.
And
Well, part of that is the scene that they put in the beginning there, like the way
Well,
that
yeah,
scene feels.
The whole other side of the rock thing is supposed to be this nice little moment where she's crying and
and the tears, like she's crying, like it clearly is affecting her on an emotional level, where John Cusack's Rob, I feel like he's like,
I don't
no,
think he could feel
okay.
that.
Yeah.
I don't think as a character, like it's not that I don't think John Cusack could do that. I don't think the Rob Gordon he portrays would ever stoop to the level of crying and it curled up in a ball in a chair. Like, that just wouldn't happen.
Right. And is that because of the hyper-masculinity that our movie characters were supposed to display in the year 2000? Or is it because of the gender of the character?
Go ahead, Will. I've got a thought, but you...
Well, I was going to say, whole new millennium, so everything changes, would have been what they should have thought. But I think they did try and stick with the a little bit stuck in that mindset of, well, men are fine in breakups and women will be upset.
Yeah, because you look at the way that Mac is reacting to it, right? Like in that very scene, you can see the way that they portray Mac. Yeah.
And that immediately makes Mac the Rob character. Not so much Rob as a character, but the one who's like above this and showing it. So I kind of didn't want her to get back with him. Like, even not knowing anything, it's like, I saw her make an effort with that stupid other side of the rock comment. And you walked out on her. And that sucks, and that's, whatever. But then, the other issue that the TV show has is a year has passed since their breakup.
Whoa, wait, I missed that.
And I feel I missed it. There was no, little 1 year later note or anything. It was just something like, they're just like, oh, I haven't had sex in a year. And I was like, oh, when did this all not happen?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
I completely missed that,
oh.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, so she's been separated from this dude for a year. And... Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she has no dating. Then she meets guy who used to be the intern in the office.
Clyde is the character's name. Jake Lacey is the actor. Yeah. And Pete was his name in The Office.
You're so mad that he's not in more of the show.
I love Jake Lacey. He's in... I'm going to take a break from High Fidelity for 2 seconds to recommend Obvious Child with Jenny Slate. It's about a woman who gets pregnant from a one-night stand and then wrestles with whether or not she should get an abortion. And it's fantastic. In a lot of ways, it's a better version of this because it has a lot of the musical stuff. It has a lot of those questions about, selfishness in this age of your life.
Yeah.
And Jake Lacey is there.
And he was been living in a gym since The Office finished because he got big.
Nice. I find it interesting that you're wondering whether or not there's an inherent masculine toxicity to the story to the movie. I think it's inherent to the story. I think if you go all the way back to the book in '95, I think that is present there. And so I do think that it is a move away from that with, even just casting Zoe Kravitz, but then to also then place her in that position right up front so that you do feel a different way about her than you've probably ever felt about Rob before. It's just, for me, it then becomes really hard to see her. Well, now that I know that a year has passed, though, I'm really struggling with that, because I almost wonder if then what we're supposed to believe is that breakup feeds into this monster that she eventually becomes. For all intents and purposes, it's very easy where if you make Rob a woman, to just portray her as a very stereotypical bitch. And I think that is a move to try to not do that in those first 5 minutes. And I haven't watched the rest of the show, so I'm not even saying that that's what ends up actually happening. But I do think that's the idea, right? Is we can't just let her just be a cold bitch for this whole series. We have to show that she has levels, especially if we want people to stick around for 10 episodes. And in this particular pilot, she's gonna be a bitch for 20 minutes of it. Let's give her 5 minutes where she's not, right? And if that's the case, I can forgive it because there's a reason. The problem is that scene does that show no favors, because on top of everything, on top of all the weirdness of introducing Rob in this way, I've even got some issues with the way that it's filmed. The fact that it is a show that is so inherently about music on top of everything else, the fact that I don't hear a good song for 15 minutes, that's ridiculous.
What is your first good song at the 15-minute mark, Sejohn? I'm just curious.
It's when what's her name enters the shop and she's like, remember this song?
And she puts on Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Dexy's Midnight Run. Yeah. It's so that moment. That was the first moment where I was like, okay, this encapsulates what I like about High Fidelity. Them being in the record store, them being kind of snobby to the customer, them listening to this kind of a goofy choice of a song, but at the same time putting some real emotion behind explaining it was actually like really like heartfelt. Like it was a very, very good moment for that show. Just to, again, to give credit where credit's due.
I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't the Frank Zappa song, which, don't get me wrong, Bobby Brown Goes to Town is one of my favorite Frank Zappa songs. It is the first Frank Zappa song that I ever heard.
Don't you eat that yellow snow for me, but
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But like, my first song was Bobby Brown, but then you put Robin as a child in 7th grade, so like at the oldest 12 years old, listening to this song, and like that's the song I was listening to when I met this guy, Kevin Bannister, which I really love that they just took the name of the guy that ended up with Alison Ashmore, like that Ashworth. That made me happy. But that she's listening to that song and that they don't cut it off before the lyric, I'll let her do all the work and then maybe later I'll rape her. I'm just like, that was a choice, huh, guys? That was an odd choice.
I think it was a very distinctive choice, though, because one of the other big things about this show, and it being a Hulu show, it feels the need to remind you that it is an adult show on a web-based like programming, right? Like odd points of nudity, odd uses of swearing, odd uses of like musical lyrics that would normally be edited for television. Like all of that stuff comes across as very much them being like, we're edgy. Like, see, we're on Hulu, so we could be edgy. And it's like, okay, calm down.
That's one of my least favorite things about entertainment, especially when there are those people who defend it, saying something needs to be rated R because then people get to talk like how they really talk. And I'm like, but then they don't do that.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. But the only thing I annoyed was with the Kevin Bannister thing. That was great. But then they didn't have the girl he was then making out with be Alison Ashmore.
I completely agree. But, I'm like that.
And I was like, why? That would be so easy to go. And because the whole thing is, oh no, she married her first boyfriend. Well, no, because I made out with her first. No, this is the whole thing. You didn't. It becomes a great little moment, a great callback. And I'm like, you could have gone so much easier. And just by her going, oh, Alison's a slut. That's all you need. Because everyone would have gone, oh, cool, they did it.
Right. Yeah. But they instead went with a name that I don't even remember.
Yeah, I've instantly forgotten what it was because it wasn't the right name, and I was like, "Nope, you don't count."
Good. I'm really glad that we felt that. Thank you. That this is a good shared catharsis. What I will say, what I am gonna say, and semi spoilers for the show. We haven't said that yet, but I am gonna talk about some stuff. Even if you don't like the show, and I know that both of you guys are in that boat. The best scene for me in the book, and it's deleted from the movie, is when Rob gets the chance to buy the singles collection.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We've seen there is a deleted version of it. I think you sent it to me on YouTube a long time ago and said, look, the scene exists. And they chose not to use it, which is the most annoying part because it's such a great moment for the character.
Right. So that great moment for the character, something that I always have been like, thank you. First of all, in the musical, he just has that collection. He has been able to amass that amazing collection of singles. So they take it away in the musical as well. But then, spoilers for a musical that ran for 13 days, he ends up selling that off so that he can pay back Laura. I couldn't remember her name. And, that's why the musical works for me in that one way, because it's him actually making effort to be a better person to try to pay her back.
Yeah.
But then the 5th episode, and I recommend the 5th episode of this show, if I did my top 5 episodes of the series, and of course I did, just because of what we're talking about, episode 5, Uptown, is the best episode, because it takes that whole thing about the singles collection, modernizes it very well, but also does the one thing that neither the book nor film does, and actually introduces you to the person who owns that singles collection. And
okay, that's cool.
So nice. you get that moment of does this dude deserve this treatment? from the woman that he cheated on. So it
because
adds,
she's selling it for like no money and just wants to get rid of him to piss him off.
yeah.
So yeah, interesting. That's good.
Yeah. So it adds to it, and it's not just a singles collection. It is a beautiful like record collection with like deep cuts and just some beautiful stuff being shown off. And in the book and movie, it's $50. It's only $20 in the show. So they take this thing that has always meant so much to me, really one of the only moments in the entire thing that means so much to me, and did a whole episode about it, and I could not believe that. And
that's awesome.
It's the best episode of it, and not just because it's something that has meaning to me, but because like it's shot well, it's written well, and I don't know, it's just a really good episode of television.
Yeah.
Which is
now,
why
one thing I was going to ask about, and I don't know if you know this, is because Nick Hornby is credited as written episodes. Is that just because of the book, or has he actually been involved in the writing?
No,
of
he
this
is.
show?
He is something that I did specifically for every episode was see who wrote it and who directed it, and most of it's directed by Jeffrey Reiner. Most of it is written by West and Kuksurka, the two people who are producing the show. They're one of the production companies on it. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that I did that is that Franklin Hardy, the creator and like showrunner of You're the Worst, tweeted out that he had gotten to work on it, and he just as a co-executive producer is the credit I saw. So I'm like, did he really get to work on it, or did he just produce it? But then the 6th episode is written and directed by him. But that credit for Nick Hornby is just based on the book which is like laughable, because I suppose in the way that the film is based on the book, so transitive property, everything is based on the book, but there are wholesale scenes lifted directly from the film that do not happen.
The whole opening 2-3 minutes, I know he does them in the book as well, but that whole monologue was pretty much verbatim.
Yeah, right.
Change the names here and there, but everything else is the same.
Well, again, I think that's purposeful. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that we point to is I don't think it was done by mistake, right? Like, they didn't trip and fall into that script. Like, they definitely were like, hey, we got to get people in here, so let's just start with the movie and then we'll work on them after that.
Which is also, I mean, my biggest critique of this would be that the first 4 episodes are pretty much an adaptation of the film. And then it's the last 6 that get to go into new territory. Mm. So that's another thing. Sejohn, having just watched the film, you weren't excited to go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
With slight changes.
Yeah.
Fucking for real. Yes.
But
so what year is this? Is it set in 2020 or is it a different year? Because I couldn't work out where they were exactly in time as well. I know it's a year had passed since they broke up, but I didn't know what year we're aiming for, because it was, they still go and get their iPhone out and they still do this and this, but also the way a lot of things weren't up to date 2020 stuff.
I would say 2020 still. I would say that it's everything that they're trying to do is set it in a modern time.
I think the line nowadays is social media. Did anybody expressly talk about things like Twitter?
Kat Monroe, who is the stand-in for Charlie, she is verified on Instagram.
Yeah, so we're talking at least after 2015. Okay. So like that's the timeline there.
Like that's her whole story, is that she's a big-time internet celebrity.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Because I was looking at like. They didn't specify. They don't talk about what's going on in the world around them. They didn't talk about who was running things or what had happened with things. So it wasn't set in a specific time. But I guess it's okay. If we're going for there's full Instagram verification, then we're in the world.
I think at the end of the day, that might be my biggest issue with just the whole shebang, right? Is that it's a story about rebellion and about, reflecting on whether or not that rebellion ever did any good for you. And I appreciate that, but I think my biggest issue is that it never places itself really. It does, like you said at the beginning, Dev. Like it doesn't take any stance politically. It doesn't take any stance emotionally. It doesn't take any stance. It does this thing, but then it does that thing with no stakes.
It simply exists.
Yeah.
And that's like why the movie I think didn't work for me. It's why when I did read the book, I felt like, oh, you do that same thing where you just want me to exist with you for 300 pages. And that's fine, but like that's not what I was looking for from this. Right. I was looking for more of a narrative. And you get that in the musical, and you kind of get that in the series. Like, I said this to Will after I had watched through the first 10 episodes. My biggest issue with the show is I will get comfortable with it. We're driving to, like, Vermont together. And you know what? I've been in the car for a couple of hours. I'm going to take off my seatbelt. I'm going to get comfortable. And then it pulls the e-brake. And suddenly, like, oh, that's right. This is high fidelity. You were doing something new and different and actually showing me how you could exist as an episode-to-episode television program. And then you're just like, yeah, but no, we're not going to do that. Remember? Because we're Disney and we own this property and we want to get more money from it.
Yeah.
Well, that, I think, probably did change it because it was meant to be on Disney Plus originally, and then it switched to Hulu. So I don't know how much that then allowed it to become more, as you said, the random nudity, the swearing, the whatever else.
Yeah.
Because when they realized that Disney Plus couldn't have that kind of thing.
Well, and it makes sense on a level of like if they were writing to a Disney Plus audience and then suddenly were allowed to be on Hulu, of course all of the comedy and nudity is going to feel heavy-handed and forced in because it's exactly that, right? It's somebody went in after the fact and plugged in swears, and you can tell almost like.
Yeah, that's true.
If you watch Designated Survivor at any point through, Series 1 and 2 are great. And Series 3, they were like, hey, we should let these guys swear some more. And it's just random and annoying because they just constantly do. And you're like, you didn't need to. That didn't add anything to your sentence. You just seem weird.
Listen to us, a bunch of old men sitting around. These kids swear too much.
Oh,
yeah, is that really?
Like the way they talk.
And we have the explicit tag. We swear on this show. We're hip. We're cool. I can say cunt, but yeah, no. That felt weird.
But yeah, but also that felt as weird as it does in the show.
Yeah. Maybe that was the point. That was the point. So last thing I'm going to talk about from the show, and because it was the first question that went through my mind when Will brought this to me, is in the book and in the film and in the musical, it exists in all three of them. Rob is a fucking asshole for 4 reasons. Do you guys remember these 4 reasons? Do you want to bounce off each other or?
No, shoot.
Okay, so reason number 1.
There's the big one.
Yeah.
A word.
There's that. But that's number 2. That's reason 2. The abortion is reason 2. Reason 1 is that Rob cheated on Laura. He slept with someone else. Mm-hmm. Because he slept with her, she terminated a pregnancy that he was unaware of. 3, he borrowed money from her. And 4, I don't remember what the 4th one is. That's why I'd hoped we could all bounce it off together. I have the book here.
I'm gonna type into Google 4 reasons why Rob Gordon is an asshole.
Oh, I found it. Shortly before she left, I told her I was unhappy in the relationship and I was kind of sort of maybe looking around for someone else. You know why I forgot that? Because like that doesn't register as like a reason against I cheated on her, causing her to terminate a pregnancy, and I owe her $5,000. The fact that he was unhappy in the relationship, that just seems normal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's a weird leap between the first 2, right? Like I cheated on her, and so I caused the abortion. There's a lot to unpack there. Let me put it that way.
Right, and there's a lot to unpack there in the fact that I've always viewed that as like the most unforgivable thing that he did. And the reason why I did that comes from my personal relationship and experience with people who have had abortions. And I know no less than 2 women who, terminated the pregnancy and it affected their ability to conceive later on in life. Like, as a direct result of that. So, like, I view that as he may have taken away from her the chance to ever be a mother. And if that's something that she actually wants, which as I've spent more time with these characters, I wonder if maybe... I mean, Laura's just as bad as Rob in a lot of ways. Because, like, they get together because she's just as apathetic about the world as he is. They're made for each other. And the musical actually really does a nice job of showing that duality. Honestly, I have to recommend the musical. It's awful. It ran for 13 days, but it gave me a lot of the, like, way that I would want this narrative to exist in a way that you could actually engage with it as an audience member, if that's,
but, like, we should talk about the idea of the abortion in 2020 terms, though, versus 1995, right?
Exactly. And that was my first question to Will is, how do you handle that in 2020? I mean, because if she got an abortion, that was her choice and her decision. This was before we ever watched the show. This was just 2 guys talking about, in changing the gender. How do you handle this, which is such a central part of the story that has existed in every adaptation up to this point?
Yeah, well, I think it's one of the big things is that nowadays we also recognize that saying that what he did caused her to have an abortion, that phrase alone gives him a kind of agency over her decision making that does not fly, is not true, is not real. So there's this idea in which that whole concept kind of needs to be trimmed anyway, right? And then so from there it becomes like, well, okay, so we've got to change it anyway, so what can we do? Making Rob a woman and making Rob the one that actually has the ability to make that choice it makes a lot of the right moves, is what I'm trying to say. So I think that actually it helps clarify that moment for me in a lot of ways that it doesn't work for me in the original story.
Right. I mean, just to clarify what I was going to say, and then I talked to Dale about it because she was there for the movie portion of it, and she's like, well, I viewed it as the fact that I don't want to be tied to this person who just cheated on me. And that was it.
Exactly.
So there was agency in her decision that you don't see, but the reason why you don't see it in the film or the book is because we're not hearing it from her standpoint. We're only seeing it through his eyes. And that gave me a completely different perspective that, like, as a man, I probably wouldn't have gotten to. I'm only viewing it through my own experiences, and I'm never going to be the person who is experiencing that. I can only ever be an observer of that.
Right.
And also, going through it and shaving off, like Sejohn said, there's that part of me that maybe she wasn't super psyched to have a kid, and then she saw an excuse or a reason, like in him cheating on her, which is like, and then it still becomes her decision for why she would do it.
Yeah.
But let's get to the 2020 show. Let's get to the 2020 series, in which the final episode, episode 10, The Other Side of the Rock, it starts with her brother confirming that he is the Liz, coming into Championship Vinyl and saying, Rob, you fucking asshole. So,
yeah.
Exactly. It loops back in nicely and confirms all suspicion.
Right. But Rob is not a fucking asshole because she told Mac that she had lost interest and was kind of maybe looking for someone else. Rob is not a fucking asshole because she borrowed $5,000 from Mac. Rob is not a fucking asshole because she terminated a pregnancy with a man she wasn't certain she wanted to be with. Rob is only a fucking asshole because she cheated on Mac. And that's it. And that's it.
That's it.
In the second episode, if you guys had watched it, she finds an engagement ring in their bedroom. She freaks out. She leaves. She runs away to go walk around the city and think about that. Mm-hmm. In that episode, we see her come back late at night and tell him, I found the ring. Let's get married. So they get engaged. And that's it. In the 9th episode, we find out that she slept with somebody while she was out on the town that night. Mac, who breaks up with her, by everything that we are told, he is the one who ends this relationship, is unaware of that fact until episode 9 of the series. Mm. So it's not even a reason why they broke up.
As I said, I can't place it, like, he becomes the guy. Max becomes the Rob character of being like, I'm bored of this relationship, or whatever. I've become stale. I might look for somebody else who actually goes and does it, right, without knowing any of the reasons that anyone else thinks that Rob has done wrong and that this Rob in 2020 hasn't done. They don't exist. Therefore, it is purely he was unhappy and wanted to do something else.
What it was she was afraid to get married, so she started to become apathetic in the relationship, and he didn't want to be with someone like that. That's the reason why the scene that you both saw, he is leaving for London. Because she's not enthusiastic in the relationship anymore. He doesn't even know about her cheating on him the night they were engaged. And, like, I also question, because of everything that we just talked about, and, you know, there's that part of me that's surprised that in a movie that released in 2000, the abortion stays in there. But then in 2020, for the only thing to be is not, and it's not just that she cheated on him. You cheated on me the night we got engaged. Like, that's the dagger through the heart? I
don't know, man. It's pretty fucked up.
I agree that it's pretty fucked up, but, like, they don't tell you till the end. You don't have any time to live with it or think about it in relationship to her.
Yeah, not knowing it the whole time kind of makes it a little bit of a weird... Well, in a weird way, it kind of turns her into almost like a villain, like the reveal that she's actually been this terrible person the whole time.
Yeah. And that's weird. Yeah. And I don't... Like, what is the point of that? If we're going to do this series in 2020, why are you adding that level to it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't know where any of the decision process came behind it, because there's so many good decisions that they make and there's so many questionable decisions that they make, which is true of everything nowadays, right? Like that just seems to be the way of it. It's just that was it worth it? Was it worth the risk of those bad decisions? And I don't know if it was, man.
I got to tell you though.
Well, I think the fact we can't even decide as to why they even made this new version suggests that they will ring true that there's a number of decisions we're never going to be able to follow.
Yeah.
If the whole concept of the show is confusing, then fine, the show will be confusing.
Yeah. If you're questioning why something exists, then it does lead that you'd probably question every decision within the thing that exists.
Sure doesn't set it up to succeed, I'll tell you that.
No. This will be great. Oh, wait, why are you here?
And
never
yet,
a good start to a sentence.
Right.
And yet my social media has been, like, dolloped with people who are watching it and loving it. So clearly, like, they read their audience right. They knew that there were people who would watch it. So we really are the outliers, the three old men yelling at clouds, questioning why.
I don't know if that's entirely true. I thought that it wasn't doing well.
I don't know. Well, that's the problem. Yeah, I don't know if they release any information.
I mean, they got a Rotten Tomatoes page, right? Like, let's do this thing.
The Rotten Tomatoes up.
So it got a lot of positive reviews before it came out. Hold on.
I mean, Will sent me some reviews that, like, every review I saw before Will sent me the Y review from The Guardian UK was positive.
So IMDb has it at 7.1.
It's sitting at an 80. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What is High Fidelity 2000 on IMDb? I think it's a 7.6.
7.5.
Okay.
So.
Come on, that's not bad. I had 10 numbers to pick from.
It's mostly positive reviews, with some people saying it's not perfect, but a lot of these positive reviews are it's busy as a show, but still watchable. Like, all of these are the most apologetic positive reviews I've ever read.
Who wrote that thing about that? We got to give them credit, because we don't want to use someone else's lyrics without giving them credit.
Uptown. That's their name on Rotten Tomatoes. So there you go,
So,
Uptown.
Uptown on Rotten Tomatoes. Not busy, but not perfect. Is that really? Yeah, when you call something busy, one would believe that it's not perfect.
Oh no, that's the name of the episode. Hold on, wait.
Oh, okay. That's the episode I love. That's episode 5. Okay, so
Dominic Patton. I just couldn't buy into any of the stakes. No, everybody's pretty positive on it. So yeah, I guess we are.
Is it certified fresh?
Yeah. I mean, anything above 60% is, right. So yes, it is.
I don't know. I thought it was 70, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but 86% is.
And that's 86% audience or critic.
86 critic and 81 audience, so it's only a little bit different.
Okay, so
we're out of 30 ratings. I mean, we're talking about 30 user ratings so far. So but
yeah, well.
I'm just flicking through some of the IMDb ones. My favorite one is a 10-star review, full 10 out of 10, but the title of it is just pretty good. It does not sound 10 out of 10 to me.
Is that Larry David? Is that Larry David reviewing it?
It's way more about the fact that actually Zoe Kravitz is good, which could well be true. She does got good so far. Someone just got a perfection. Do you remember the first time you saw Raiders of the Lost Ark? It was perfect. Mm-hmm. This is the same. A lot of must watch. I'm glad it was made. A good show with unfair reviews.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It seems like it's a lot of people like defending it.
Right. Yeah, and you know who defends?
Continuation of the classic film. Is it a classic? Yeah.
I get it. It is, because 20 years later they're remaking it. Come on, though. Let's talk about some of this stuff. Like, one of the top 10 books of the year, Entertainment Weekly. And my favorite, right on the cover, it is rare that a book so hilarious is also so sharp about sex and manliness, memory and music, from The New Yorker. Mm-hmm. Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
It's 1995 language. We'll never know. But so, as a reference point, we're looking at an 81% audience rating by 30 people on High Fidelity, on 2020 High Fidelity, and that is people considering that a win. 79%, 2% less, at over 11,000 ratings, is Birds of Prey, a thing that is like getting panned right now as being considered a failure. So, that's where we're at in the world. I just want to point that out. 30 people give 81% to High Fidelity, and suddenly Twitter loves it.
Could you do me a favor, though? Because I was expecting that to be the High Fidelity movie Rotten Tomatoes, not Birds of Prey. I'm really glad you did that, because it does paint a very wide picture of the world we're currently living in media-wise. But
High Fidelity has a huge rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but you have to consider that it's a movie that came out before Rotten Tomatoes, and all of those have really high ratings, because nobody who dislikes a movie goes back to tell people that. But everybody that loves a movie. So, I will grab it, but I will promise you that it'll be overinflated.
Yeah, but the reason why I want to see it, though, is because Will asking, is it a classic movie?
Oh, High Fidelity? Yes. Yeah, we're at a 91% for High Fidelity on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that. They don't do an audience rating for it, because it's all based on critics' ratings. What they do is they go back and they take all of the ratings that it got in newspapers and basically do the math again to tell you what it would be if they did critics' ratings back then. So 91%, and that's all critic. They won't have an audience rating for it.
Right. So to 86. So they're doing the thing. They're succeeding. Like that's the question that we ask a lot on the Say Report, is whether or not a decision was not was the decision smart, was the decision that we would make, but a lot of these decisions are made in pursuit of the almighty dollar. And the critics, being so appreciative and, thumbs up about it, says that, probably we're going to get a second season of this show. I don't know where
Yeah,
they're
a
going
lot
to
of the
go with
reviews.
it.
A lot of what I'm seeing is like, everyone should watch this, so they make more of it for us, and then if you keep watching it, they'll make more. And you go, that doesn't seem like a review needs to say that. And I mean, I'm flicking back to reviews of the movie on their IMDb page, 20 years ago. The in-depth analysis is so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And people are there going about, what a wonderful, it's one of the best comedies, but also a very poignant study of male life and fragility. Cusack continues his winning streak, apparently. All these kind of things, whereas people have really got into it, whereas all the ones for the thing are like, it's okay to make remakes. Everyone doesn't like this, it's just upset because they remade something.
Well, let me tell you, the person who is upset, but not just because they remade it, is me. Because I went and I looked back at all of them through my 2020 eyes, 2020 hindsight. I hate myself right now for that. You guys, I should be divorced from the Save Report for that terrible joke, but I did.
No, that's our motto this year. Fuck it. That's the Save Report's motto this year. 2020 hindsight.
But I went back, yeah, especially looking at Ace Ventura. But yeah, to look back and to look at it through these eyes, like, I'm more upset that they remade it because I don't think the special brand of negativity that it represents is something that we should be excited is being put out into the world again.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't feel like it's a thing that shouldn't have been made. I just don't have any interest in it. It wasn't made for me,
No, I feel it was of a time, and it maybe is best staying in that time. I mean, as I said, I'm saying this having seen only one episode of a new season, and I don't know where they're going or what they're doing. As you said, it does get better. Perhaps maybe the first 4 episodes, you do need to plow through. I guess they have to do the backstory or the movie, I guess, for people who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to assume a lot of people who watch this are watching it because they've seen the movie or read the book and have gone, oh, I like that.
I mean, the thought from both of us in this house watching it in the beginning was, I kind of wish they just called it something else. But then they don't get to champion on the fact that, oh, remember High Fidelity? It's back in POG form. Like,
yeah.
But because there's so much where, like, it's a cool story on its own, but it's not when you consider where it comes from. But yeah, sorry, Will, you were...
No, that is, I mean, yeah, you summed it up. I think the two issues I've had so far with what the movie did incredibly well and what the book had great aspects of, and this is harder. Having read the book more recently when we had access to things like Spotify, you could easily go and search for every song you read in that book. But when it came out, you didn't have that freedom. So I think there was a lot more of it became a thing in people's lives to, like, let's find the songs mentioned, and you have to go out and search for them. Whereas now it's like, I think they're struggling or some point to find those unheard of songs to play in the shop. So people can be like, hey, I like this one. What is it? I mean, it's that great scene in the movie, and it's one of my favorite scenes where he goes, I'm now going to sell 5 copies of the Beta Band album. And he puts on Rain, and everyone's like, hey, this song's really good. It's like, yeah, it's the Beta Band. You might like them. Like, I feel that's way harder to do now because music is way more accessible now, and everyone's got either Spotify or Amazon Music or YouTube Music or whatever you use. You've got this maybe harder to find thing, and I think it becomes that point where people are going to be writing those reviews that I've seen for a few things, and it's usually on Facebook comments or where else, and it might be just like, well, I already knew all the songs in this film, so it wasn't good for me because it didn't seem cool.
I will say a lot of the music in this I did know, and because I know how fucking wacky my musical knowledge is, I was like, I'm impressed that you guys used this. I'm impressed you went there with this. The only time this one actually upset me is when it played those songs, like the Fleetwood Mac song in the first episode, where it's like, oh, this is going to make audiophiles so angry. And I'm like, yeah, but probably not. Probably people are nuanced. And then they show that when she's like, Rumors is overrated, doesn't mean it's not a great album. It doesn't have to be my favorite. And I can admit that there's some garbage on there. But there's also, Secondhand News is a jam. It's a great song.
And that, I think, was the most amount of character development that I saw in terms of her, when she was like, oh, but then, there's this bit and there's this, and Stevie Nicks did this, and Lindsay Buckingham, and like, that was cool. That's the character. That's the nerdy side of Rob that you need to see.
Right.
To show why she does what she does and who she is. Like, it's not about she's just kind of detached from the world, nihilistic, whatever.
Right.
She has huge love, and she wants everyone to know about it, but like, hasn't
And
quite
true
worked
love.
out. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Like she's not just learning all of this shit just to be the smartest girl in the room. She's learning all of this shit because she cares about it, and that is key. You're right.
Yeah. And you know what? As someone who has learned a lot of shit because I love it, maybe I guess what I'm looking for is that like, I don't need Laura or I don't need Mac, because I have this one thing that I truly love, and that can be my true love, and I can just live in the world with that. Like, I don't need a happy ending, but like, maybe just that. Maybe like, it really bothers me that he feels like he's nothing without someone else. And it's really why, huge spoilers for the TV series, I'm happy that she winds up alone at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she's broken, but we know that she's not really alone, because she has her friends, she has her shop, she has her passion.
She has her brother.
Yeah. She has her niece, because the baby ends up happening.
And she can, sit and reorganize her record collection autobiographically. And that'll kill a few days.
I am very happy that what came first, the music and the misery, never happens in the Hulu series. Because I get that as something Rob would say. It doesn't seem like something after a year she would still be questioning. And maybe they can flash back to that year and we can see her at her worst, Rob Gordon self. Because you don't see that in the series. And I think it's because what Sejohn said, you can't just have her as a cold bitch, because then you don't have any depth to go with. Okay, but we've talked for a long time about this. Sejohn, anything else to add?
No. Clearly. Like, yeah, my feelings are pretty clear.
That's fine. I just wanted to give you your, final thoughts moment. Will, to you.
I will say, as a final thought, if it does not come out at some point that it's actually just Jack Black in heavy makeup, I will be incredibly surprised. All I thought, even the voice was the same. I was like, everything about you sounds like Jack Black.
Excellent.
Yeah, she did a really good job.
Absolutely dressed up. I was like, yeah, you've nailed that character, as it was.
Wonderful. So my final thought, it's three things. Thing number one, the 8th episode is all from Simon's perspective. I didn't think they were going to do something like that with this series. And it made me happy to see the narrator shift to somebody else.
Yeah.
Thing number two, as the two guys that I learned about Pinot bombs with, there is a new wine drink sweeping the nation in the wake of High Fidelity, and it is the Frosé or Frozen Rosé. And I want to try.
Oh yeah, you can do Frosé with the Brosé.
Have you not ever heard of a Frosé before?
Nope.
Frosés are awesome.
Look at you guys.
Yeah, we have them available.
Yeah, do you do them with the little wine bottle topped over them? Because I always, whenever you go out to a bar around here, you can either get a Frosé or you can get a Corona Rita, and it feels very much like when McDonald's asks, "Do you want a girl toy or a boy toy?"
Honestly, we have a big slushy machine on the back bar full of Frosé.
Nice.
And we just pour it out into wine glasses and put a little straw in there for you. Maybe a strawberry if we're feeling fancy.
Yeah, but the Frosé is hitting big out here right now. You're not wrong.
And thing number three, Bruce Springsteen in the movie is the one who tells him to go say goodbye to everybody. In the show, and it's picture perfect, is Debbie Harry from Blondie.
Nice.
And Heart of Glass is playing underneath it. And it's a great version of Heart of Glass, and it's wonderful. So like, even though I might sound less than enthused about it, there are definite things in this show that work. So that's like,
All right.
don't let us dissuade you if you were interested in it, or like give it a shot if you liked it, or even if you didn't, if you've never heard of High Fidelity before, give it a shot, because where we're coming from is a completely different place than I think most of the world is going to come from.
Yeah, I completely agree, man.
But I feel that's true for the Say Report in general.
Oh,
I would like to hope you guys always come from your own place.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if we've taught you anything over the years, right? Like do your own thing and take in your own media and make your own decisions. But we're just here to give you our thoughts on it. And on this one, they weren't so hot.
Yeah.
That's all.
I guess right now this is sort of the disclaimer. Don't think of us as the snobs from High Fidelity.
Yeah.
It's not
You're allowed in our. You can come in the record store. We might look at you, but you can come in and it's fine. We'll still say yes and sell you stuff.
Yeah, and I guess, like, Sejohn, would you sell somebody a Michael Jackson vinyl in 2020? Okay.
Fuck yes. Of course I would.
Yeah, they've got to learn somehow.
They've got to learn somehow, and that's beautiful. So, Will, do you have anything to plug, anything to say before we end this?
No, I was just I'm relatively hoping I'd be able to throw it over to myself.
Oh, excellent. Well, we'll let you do that at the end. So if you'd like to tell Sejohn something about yourself or why maybe he should give this another look in 2020, you can find him online at Siege versus the World.
And I know that Devon has a gluttony of Tim Robbins' Ian Pog sitting around, and I'm sure that he would gladly trade for a young Rob via Drake Bell slammer. So hit him up at Devon D. Decker.
I want that Drake Bell slammer. He knows me. This is why he's my host companion. And now, Will, you can do it all you, buddy.
I mean, I guess I should say as well, if anyone wants to disagree with things I said, then I'm at Fournier09. Good luck spelling my name. I'll see you there. And in every way to confuse people in Inception or Looper or whichever version you'd like, I will now throw it over to myself to say goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Selwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so it's delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.